3 metamorphoses of the spirit I named for you. How the spirit became a camel, and the camel a lion, and finally a child. Thus spoke Zarathustra, Friedrich Nietzsche, 1844 to 1900. Hi Chris, with any big life transition, I truly think I'm not going to survive. The camel, a weight-bearing spirit. Its strength demands what is heavy and heaviest. I think there's going to be some freak accident that claims me before this new lifestyle can. Not in a depressed, cynical way, but in the sense that I'm incapable of envisioning my life after this imminent change, so much so that it must not happen. There's absolutely no way this change is going to happen. I will eat my hat if this change happens. Of course it always does, and I always live to see the many opportunities brought about in these transitions. So why do I cope with it in the way that I do? Why do I feel the need to cope at all? Why is change scary? It's almost always for the better, and yet I never seem to interpret it in that way. I find it to be horrifying, and I tend to try and avoid it and confronting it altogether. Instead of just accepting this fact and going on about my life as I probably should have, I spent days researching, trying to justify this overwhelming fear I have while I transitioned from high school into college. The amygdala is the almond-shaped part of your brain responsible for triggering fight or flight, as well as most other emotions, and interestingly enough, processing memories. However, today we're going to disregard the last two, and we're going to focus on the first. Anything that causes a disruption in the familiarity of your day-to-day life is interpreted by your brain as an error, as a threat. Threats send your body into fight or flight, and this essentially means that we're hardwired to resist change. But why? An average adult brain requires about 2/3 of their daily glucose intake to function properly. According to Optoceutics, the brain has limited energy stores and cannot store glucose for future use. Rather, it keeps an emergency stash of glycogen for rainy days. This essentially means that your brain has a limit, a daily budget. Now, this isn't to say go consume massive amounts of sugar to increase your daily brain budget. Very far from it. Excessive amounts of glucose can damage blood vessels in your brain, which in turn limits the amount of oxygen-rich blood your brain can get. And no oxygen means no brain cells, and you need those things. Your brain does a lot to conserve energy, from evolving to develop more energy-efficient strategies to encode information to sacrificing peripheral tissue. Our brain likes to be energy efficient as it relies on a limited resource. What are you doing? One way that your brain saves energy is by developing habits. The more routine something becomes, the less you have to think about doing it, and in turn, less resources are used. Essentially, habits allow your noggin to accurately budget its glucose. And change is the exact opposite of habit. It is stepping outside of the tedium humdrum of day-to-day life, and it demands more resources. Resources that your brain has worked tirelessly to budget and therefore isn't so willing to give up. Life transitions are easily the biggest changes anybody will go through. Your entire life is transitioning. The basal ganglia is the part of the brain that is responsible for developing and maintaining habits. When it senses a disruption, it sends signals to the amygdala saying that there's a threat. Then it needs to resist whatever's happening in an attempt to conserve energy. This is where fear comes in. This is where apprehensiveness comes in. Even though in these life transitions, big things are happening. All of this might leave you feeling nihilistic, and rightfully so. If my brain is actively resisting change, telling me that it's bad, who am I to say otherwise? Why should I actively work against my own brain to see this transition through? According to psychologist Drew Adelman, life transitions are life's way of asking us to re-examine our present way of being and force us to develop and grow as individuals. Now, he means this in a metaphorical and literal sense. Life transitions offer a period of reflection, meaning you'll learn a lot more about yourself and what you want out of life. But the reason you're able to do so is because during life transitions, you literally grow new neural pathways. Literally. Just because your brain fights change does not mean it's a bad thing. Often, reality is quite the opposite. Life transitions are huge changes, and they're hard, but they help you grow as a person, as cliche as it sounds. This isn't to undermine the difficulty of life transitions. In fact, here are some tips for getting through them according to the Ross Center. Prepare. Whether it's mentally or physically, prepare. Get your mind ready for what's to come. Set small goals, whatever they may be. Set small achievable goals to reward your brain more frequently. It likes that. And to prove to yourself that you can do it. Set a routine. As we talked about, your brain likes habit. Try and form routine in the midst of the chaos so your brain is less resistant to these changes, making it easier to get through. Life transitions are hard, but they bring about growth. This growth requires a little bit more glucose, but you're worth the investment. Thanks for watching, Chris. I hope this can help you in your transition into college, as I hope it does for me. I cannot wait to see what you talk about this Friday. And if you like this video essay, might I suggest you go check out Chris's? Or you could always share with a friend. It'll help our little corner of the internet grow, and I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next week. Bye.